I experienced daily weaponization of that diagnosis because, I don't know, people tend to do unexplained things.
Yeah, they do.
And so much so that I experienced advocacy for me to take my own life. And so, because the thought behind that advocacy was, well, the world needs one less autistic person. And I experienced being fed the lie of worthlessness for 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Heal with Beth Jones. That's me, your host. My mission is to bring the power of healing to trauma and abuse survivors. That's why every guest on this show will bring you an amazing story of healing in action. So come on, everyone, let's heal. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Heal. I'm Beth, your healing mentor. We often think that the hardest part of trauma is the event itself, but the true damage often lies in the story we tell ourselves after the event. The internal wiring that whispers, we're unlovable, broken, or a burden. We assume that if we're treated poorly, it must be because we hold no value. Christopher Carazas joins me today to dismantle that lie. From surviving the weaponization of his autism diagnosis to finding a soul-deep connection with a partner who tragically passed away just as he was finding his footing, Chris navigated the darkness of a psychiatric ward and the grief of losing the one person who truly saw him. But instead of giving up, he transformed his pain into a memoir, Now That I'm Still Here, and it's saving others. If you've ever felt crushed by the weight of shame or believed the lie that you don't belong here, this episode is going to hand you the tools to rewrite your wiring. So get ready to embrace your true worth. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, and thank you for the kind introduction.
How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and I'm delighted to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, good. All right, let's get started. Would you please tell our audience whatever it is that they should know about Chris Carazas today and who you are right now in this moment?
Chris Carazas today is, I'm an autistic individual who has survived psychological abuse because of that diagnosis. I didn't know I was autistic till I was 35. And as soon as that diagnosis came, that's when the abuse started. Outside of healing and like working through that, I also worked for a startup where we're building an AI platform to measure and quantify social impact in financial terms for nonprofits and NGOs to secure funding and use it as a project management tool. But I'm also working for another software company that's a marketing firm, and I do finance for them. So that's kind of who I am.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And it's a great introduction of yourself. If I can just say for a moment, I'm so glad that you are here with us. And I know it takes a lot of courage to move past some of the pain that you have experienced, and even takes courage to make the decision to keep going sometimes every day. And I'm so happy that you did. The world needs you, not only the work that you're doing that you just described to us, was from your paying day jobs, which are very, very important. Particularly, I love the one around quantifying the social impact and helping investors to have numbers around where their money is going and what it's doing, all of the good that's coming from that work that nonprofit organizations do. And it's sometimes a barrier to those organizations getting funding. And so I think that's amazing work that you do to help that process continue.
Yeah, and it's also been a response to what happened with USAID. A lot of nonprofits and NGOs lost their funding as a result of it shuttering. So this is a way to help them pursue new avenues too.
Yes.
For funding.
Yes, which is a wonderful benefit for all of those organizations and the people that they serve all over this world. So I love that work that you do. But I also love that you're now sharing your healing journey with people, and you've written your book and can help people who have had similar experiences to you to see your path, see your light, see your healing, and hopefully be inspired by that. Thank you very much for all of your work. And I'm delighted that you are here with us.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about your healing journey, right? Because that's what we do on this show, talk about healing journeys. And that'll give you an opportunity to lead into your story about how your book came to be and what's in there and what you're hoping to do with your book, which I have a copy of it here while we're talking about it for just a moment.
Okay.
Now That I'm Still Here, which is a beautiful title, given what you've shared with us, and I think very appropriate. And we'll flash it up there again for people to see. But before we get into the healing journey and sort of the pivot point that put you in the place of taking your healing journey, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience about what some of your experiences have been? You touched on it a little bit, but just to give you an opportunity, if there's anything else that you'd like to say about that.
Yeah. So in I was married at the time, and as soon as that diagnosis came, I was, for whatever reason, that piece of paper, that diagnosis, really reframed that relationship. It became hyper weaponized on a daily basis, or I should say, I experienced a daily weaponization of that diagnosis because, I don't know, people tend to do unexplained things.
Yeah, they do.
And so much so that I experienced advocacy for me to take my own life. And so, because the thought behind that advocacy was, well, the world needs one less autistic person. And I experienced being fed the lie of worthlessness for 2 years, a little over 2 years.
I'm sorry you experienced that. I really am. I have a niece who is also autistic, and I just couldn't imagine the world without her. Same as I can't imagine the world without you, right? And I don't know why I don't really understand, people who hurt us. The only thing that I know for sure about them is that the chances are pretty high that they've experienced some really painful things in their own life that they've not healed from. Unhealed, hurt people, as the phrase goes, right? And I have to believe that that's what you've experienced. Well, it made me a little emotional. That's what you've experienced in a really, really extreme way. And there's nothing wrong with being autistic. There's nothing wrong with being neurodiverse. It gives you the color of character and the person who you are. And I know that through my niece, who's an amazing person. And the time I've spent with you, I think you're an amazing person as well. So
Thanks.
I'm sorry that you experienced that. And I hope you know that when somebody tries to define your worth, what they're really doing is looking in the mirror and defining their own worth, right? Seeing their own self-perceived worth. That's really what's coming out. And it really has nothing to do with you, but it's so hard and painful to be on the receiving side of that.
Yeah, and it's hard to see when we're in that spot.
Yes. And I think I've never experienced that, but I have to imagine, and you can tell me that it's even more difficult coming from the person in your life who is supposed to be there to love you and support you, your partner, someone who you trust and turn to for support.
That part was devastating. I'm not gonna lie about that piece, but it was also very confusing for me. Um, one of the, and I think we'll get to it later, is um, it's I walked this trail here in Plymouth, where I'm from. It's called the Grace Trail. It's an acronym for it's gratitude, release, acceptance, challenge, and embrace. And it's one of the mindfulness things I've done, is just embrace what happened, and I can't change it. I experienced what I experienced, and, well, onward, right? It's what I do now with that experience that really matters.
Yes. And turning it for good, making a positive ripple to come out of that, which you are doing. I'm happy that you're here, Chris. It's a good thing. Yes. And you have so much value and so much worth to offer this world. And I hope that you know that despite what you've experienced.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we pivot around and turn to your healing journey and just take us through the pivot point when you came to the place that you decided there has to be something different in this life and I can shed this pain and I'm going to shed this pain. So what led you to that place?
It it came in little micro moments, right?
Mhm.
You know, I ended up getting. I spent time in a ward, um, and that gave me a ward and then intensive outpatient program
Mhm.
through McLean, and they gave so it was about a month um, of care. I walked out of there with tools, but also very very powerful experiences. One being. I had met an older lady in the ward who had lost her son, a few days prior to us meeting face to face.
Mm.
And, she could not bear the thought of her living and her son not living. And, it put her there.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that can easily be my mom. I mean, that would be my mom if I had fully carried out what I had intended to do. And so it was a nice concrete perspective, like
Yeah.
firsthand perspective. But after I walked out with the tools, it was kind of hard to. And here's my. I don't want to dog on care. Get the care, and it's helpful. But one piece of constructive criticism that I have, and maybe it's just where I experienced it. Right, is it gets pitched in if you do this, 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 and this, then you're healed and you're fine, right? And like I walked out of there with these tools, and I still apply those tools, by the way, and I'm grateful I got them. But there was no cinematic moment. There was no big thing. That those tools require a lot of effort, but it's a small moment. Like back to the original answer, it was a small moment of the small and mundane wins of getting up. That's a win, which led to I had to take my dog outside and to pee, which eventually led to because people here like dogs, they would stop me and be like, "Oh, can I say hi to your dog?" Like, yeah, you can say hi to my dog, and then that turned into over time that turned into a friendship,
Yes.
and getting asked to go places with people, and so slowly started building my community, so much so that by the summer, everyone knew Shadow. Everyone in my apartment complex knew Shadow. I
Mhm.
was just the assistant.
Sure.
Uh,
Shadow's your dog?
Shadow's my dog, who's also on the cover, by the way. Um,
Okay. So yeah, by the way, so Shadow is obviously a
a
shepherd.
German
Shepherd?
Shepherd,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah, you're Shadow's assistant, handler. I've had that feeling very, very, very often from animals that have lived with me, including my 2 cats I have now. I think I'm just here to serve them in
yeah,
the world.
I'm it, and that you know, so I was starting to kind of like rebuild and reclaim, but still felt that when you get fed that lie of worthlessness, it's hard to like rewire yourself out of that. But one thing that helped was I had I had gotten to know a lot of people, and I saw like in the summer I saw a friend talking to this cute girl, and so I was like, I'm gonna go say hi. I'm gonna like not in a creepy way. Like I'm gonna kind of like not miss an opportunity just to say hi to a cute girl.
Mhm, mhm,
So like in my mind, this was the process. I'm just gonna go say hi and say, "I'm Chris. Nice to meet you. Why are you hanging out with this guy?" And off on my merry way, because like
mhm,
her and I ended up talking for hours,
hmm,
which led to us dating for a few days later. Like we ended,
mhm.
it was a few days before the 4th of July. I had invited her to come and go on the boat with us. Not my boat, but my brother-in-law. I wish I had a boat. But and then she was the first nice thing that happened to me in a really long time.
Hmm.
She saw me as a person,
Mm-hmm.
a human, and didn't care didn't care about the autism piece. She's like, my cousin's autistic. Yeah, like, who cares? Like, get over yourself and let's go karting. She, I opened up to her a little bit about the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
but not too much. It was very hard to talk about it still because it was still, by the time we met and started dating, it was just months, right? Between
Mm-hmm.
like the divorce, the hospital visit, and it was from April to July.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was
Short
that
period of
short.
time.
I
Yeah.
was not ready. Like, our life was full. She's like, let's go wine tasting. Like, she knew how much I loved, or she knew how much I loved Edgar Allan Poe. So we went to a Edgar Allan Poe speakeasy for Halloween and
Mm-hmm.
haunted Six Flags. And she suffered a lot with my fascination on the like Bridgewater Triangle, and which is like the Bermuda Triangle, but here in Massachusetts. And
Yeah.
she's like, let's go check out the sights. Like,
Mhm.
um, so like it got my mind off of things and started doing things. Like, she helped me do things I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
It was in like it through her, I was learning to live again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And until she got sick.
Yeah.
Right. So she got sick in March of last year, and she was put on a ventilator, and like, I didn't know what to do. I really did not. I made a deal with, I'm not very spiritual or religious, but like, I made a deal with whatever's out there. I said, I'm going to write, I'm going to tell her my story. And the point was, I'm going to write it down, read it to her, and we're going to pull through this together. Because even if we end up just friends or whatever, I want you in my life because you've helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how cathartic writing was. I wanted her to know everything. I started with growing up with my autism being undiagnosed, to growing up overseas and the impact that had, and the diagnosis and the abuse I experienced,
Mm-hmm.
and why the person I wanted to be is still duct taped to the broken person that I'm just struggling to leave behind.
Yeah.
And so it became it became a confession just to her.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to her little short, it started as little short stories. So when she got to her, when I got to her chapter, she passed away that day. The goal was to like read it to her, and just so she'd know. And she passed away. She passed away last April, and that like really devastated me. But my sister encouraged me to finish the book because she said, like, you can finish this and it could really help people, right? and
Yes.
and that's what it ended up becoming for me. It's like healing then turned into, I want to share my experience
Yeah.
of what I went through, not as a crusade against the abusers, right, but a crusade to help others stay and to help others see their worth.
Yes.
Because it's still something I'm learning to do. Maybe as I'm learning, I can help others.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
why we do what we do when we share our story, for that very
yeah.
reason. Yeah.
And some people like may not have the ability to put their pain into words,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in sharing my story can help put words to their story so that they can get help.
Yes.
And so that's how the book came out to be. And that's my mission. I continue to write stuff on Substack too, on various topics, grief, loss, to my dog Shadow has her own little weekly dispatch where she makes fun of me. Well, I'm mainly making fun of myself for
Mm-hmm.
things that happened that week, but it just covers a whole myriad of topics,
Hmm.
based on abuse, survival, autism, and for people that grew up like me overseas most of their life as a involuntary refugee, and I'm using that word lightly. I traveled the world not because of my parents' jobs and then
Yeah.
my job, and
What we call
so
third culture kids, which I'm
exactly.
one of those as well. Yeah.
Yay!
Yes. Yeah. I understand that experience very well. It's a lot to do with shaping me. So yeah, I grew up in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. My dad was in the oil industry.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did talk about that, and I lived in Oman for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a little bit about that. You know, you've said some really wonderful things in what you've just been talking about. And I'm going to rewind a little bit. I'm going to go back to the part where you mentioned um, sort of the fallacy or the idea that as people who are suffering survivors, when we're trying to start making our way forward on the healing journey, we're just looking for something that sticks and something that works. And you said there's no do 1, 2, 3 and you're healed. And you are 100% correct about that, right? Which is also my experience. And I've said this before that there is no magic bullet. There is no quote unquote cure, but to do the hard work to design your own healing pathway, your own healing journey, and to gather the tools that you use and keep with you as you go through the hard part of the healing journey and then continue on through your life. So you are very correct about that. And I think that's what you're describing is what your experience has been.
Yeah, and something really interesting. Last week I was watching. I don't know if you saw this, but Will Smith did a little mini documentary with the National Geographic channel,
Hmm.
where he went pole to pole, and
I've seen the advertisement for it, but I haven't watched it.
there is one episode where he goes up to the Himalayas,
Yeah.
and he spends time with monks, you know,
Yeah.
and I really suggest people to go watch that, just even that snippet, because like it talked a lot about um surrendering to what happened, so that
Yes.
you can find peace. And so I think I took a lot from that, because like I think once you surrender yourself to your past, that I think that becomes a essential starting point for a way
Yes.
forward, whatever that may mean for you, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that they talk about there is the connection, which was human connection, which was really important to me. It made me pause and think about how much community was behind me, or it has been behind me so far. Like, not just my family, but like my pickleball group. Like, that's part of. I had to like seek that out, and it became a way for me to get distracted and
Hmm.
actually get some exercise in, and to finding small groups like the Association for Suicide Prevention, and being part of that little group, because talking to fellow survivors is you can get a lot more insight than someone who hasn't been in your shoes before.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think what you're describing, so I understand the healing process, going back to the do this, 1, 2, 3, and suddenly you're healed, which there is no such thing as, which we've already said. But how I understand the healing process to work, or what the healing journey looks like for me, it has 3 essential parts. If you can see behind me, it's kind of on the wall. It's what the word heal means. It's to hope, evolve, and love. HEAL, hope, evolve, and love. And you're describing that process very well, because hope is when you talked earlier about just making the small decisions every single day that you see adding up over time. And it may be something as simple as I'm getting out of bed today, or I'm going to go walk my dog now. But you see the compounding effect of, oh, I got out of bed. I went and walked my dog. I started to interact with people. Now they're my community, right? That hope that you're talking about building there and fostering, that's what keeps us moving on the journey, particularly when it gets really difficult, as it does. And then you're describing with the tools, finding the tools that work for you, which I talk a lot about that because each of us is different in terms of the things that work for us when we need support or help or to learn and just to progress. Therapy, physical movement, hiking, being whatever it may be that we need, we all have our own tools that we use on that journey, and it's unique to each single one of all of us. What I do think is common that we all experience is having to go through a discovery process about who we are, and part of that is understanding and accepting, surrendering to what happened to us. What have our painful experiences been that caused us to live as a survivor in whatever form that took, whatever it looked like, right? And that evolution process, getting that out, being able to say, yes, this happened to me, that surrender, but also speaking it. Like when you're actually able to speak it and say, I am someone who experienced that, it's so powerful. And the healing process. And to your point, which takes us on to the love part of the healing journey, the community that you talked about. But when you are a particular type of survivor and you connect in with a group who uniquely understands you because they too are a survivor of attempted suicide, right? Someone who is like that, you connect with the suicide prevention group. That's a community that uniquely understands you. And there's a sense of love that comes from that, which is what that connection is all about. And ultimately, for me, that's where we're going on the healing journey, is to find that community that gives us love. Which is why for me, if there is a destination on the healing journey, that's it, is love. You've described that beautifully.
Thanks. And for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, being able to find fellow survivors has been so critical because I've always read it this way. My family's there if I want to talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the depth and emotional severity, for lack of a better term, they might not often know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little kid asking a parent, what's it like to be married? You could explain to the kid what it's like. They're not going to get it till they themselves get married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, so it's, it's a different dynamic to my healing process that adds value for me.
Yeah, I agree. Mine too. And I think it's hugely important. Right after I had my life altering event, the pivot point for me that put me at the doorstep or the gateway to my healing journey. One of the things that happened to me very quickly was finding my way to a support group for survivors, female survivors of sexual assault. And there were particular people in there that were focused on those of us who have survived that as a child. And then there were people in there who have survived that as an adult. And I experienced the same thing that you did, right? Being in a group of people who uniquely understood what I was experiencing. And really, I mean, it wasn't even really so much about the understanding or the empathy, but it was really about being seen and being with people who could helped me learn how to talk about what I'd been through and what I was experiencing, right? To own my truth, to be able to bring that out, but also to see other people and to know that I wasn't alone. And that, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword about why support groups exist, right? They exist because we need them and they help us, but they exist because we're here and we've experienced these things, right? It was very freeing and liberating for me to be seen in that way. And it's something that I think is hugely valuable as well. So I think it's, maybe take this as a tip if you're listening. Been some great things that we've talked about already, but, if you are a survivor and you're struggling with being seen, you're struggling with an understanding, you're struggling to have conversations with people who can interact with you in a way that's helpful, go find a support group that speaks to your particular trauma or, the way that you're surviving. If you deal with addiction or alcoholism, there are groups out there, obviously, that can help you with that too, but something that aligns with you directly because it's really super powerful. I've experienced that. You've experienced that.
Yeah, and I think what can be really overwhelming is knowing where to start to look, right?
Yes.
And they're like, for me, I live in Massachusetts, and they've made it so easy to, like, you can use 988. I mean, for my personal, I use 988 to talk. Even I still use it today, and they have access to resources which could lead you to find other kinds of resources you didn't know you needed.
Yes, you too can heal, and I'm here to show you how. Download my free healing quick start guide at empoweredsurvivors.com/heal. And congratulations on taking your first step toward transforming your deepest wounds into your greatest strengths. Yeah, that where to start is a difficult question. And I experienced that same thing because when your world turns upside down and you are so deep in pain, what you described earlier, even the effort to get out of bed sometime is hard, much less trying to go and help yourself. And so gets compounded like, where do I even go? And for me, what was most powerful was having the courage to find people in my circle who and it's coming to mind, I was going to say that I felt comfortable sharing what I was experiencing because I didn't really know what I was experiencing because of what I had been through that revealed this to me. I had a hypnotherapy session that just cracked open what I had actually experienced in terms of the child abuse when I was young that I'd experienced. And yeah, I sort of had fragments of information in my mind that I had collected over the years, but I had never put them together to tell a cohesive story that went, you experienced that. You suffered that. You were abused. And that's what happened in the hypnotherapy session. Suddenly I come back to conscious awareness with this realization of what had happened to me, but no vocabulary around it, right? I mean, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't even at that time have called it child sexual abuse, which that's what it was. But I didn't even have that language, and the word trauma was nowhere in my head at all. And so, my experience was I just felt this like crushing weight of heaviness. I'm like, I have to get this off. I have to do something. Like, I need to move. Couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I was experiencing all of that, right? Deep depression, darkness just consuming me, but a will inside to move past it, which I think you've had as well, right? I have the inside of me. I want to go on past this, which, by the way, I think a lot of that comes from God, the higher power, when we have that inside of us and when we feel it and we actually move forward. But I had to I had to sort of canvas my network, the people around me, and say, where do I feel like I can share what I'm experiencing and hopefully move forward? I had fear. I wasn't like, I'm going to be comfortable telling these people, or I know what the outcome is going to be. And in fact, the night that I told these two women, I was terrified because I didn't know how they were going to react to what I was about to tell them. But it was actually the first time that I was aware that I was experiencing unconditional love. And all they did was wrap their arms around me. And they'd actually had their own experiences in their lifetime, not directly with what I'd experienced, but because not experiencing it themselves, but because they had intersected in that world. So for example, one of the women I told, she had been a prosecutor in the early days of her career for perpetrators of child abuse. So people who hurt children, she had prosecuted them. And so when I'm telling her what I was experiencing, she knew exactly and was able to give me language that night that helped me to then go to the internet to say, I'm looking for these resources. And I was in Hong Kong at the time, so I was like, I'm never going to find. And immediately I found the resources that I needed to get me moving. And so, having that courage, I mean, your experience is to call 988 if you need to. There's someone on the other end of that line that's a human that can move you forward. Or in my case, find people who you feel like you can at least start to talk to. And it's amazing what happens when you start to do that, right? I think most people just want to help us, and that's why they're out there. We just have to have the courage to reach out.
And that's something I was going to say as you were, it's what's scary is the unknown, right? If you take this step forward in starting to help yourself, a lot of, I know I was, but I think a lot of people also are afraid to take that step. And for me, it was because I didn't know what was going to happen. Or, were people going to leave me? Was this going to be another, open the door for other people to start abusing me?
Yes,
Like you mentioned, when you open up, you'll be pleasantly surprised of the kindness of others. There's actually more good in this world than bad.
I believe that too. Yes,
And unfortunately, sometimes the bad comes and finds us first and bites us in the ass.
we're not equipped to.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and it it takes opening up to start seeing the opposite.
yeah. I was afraid that night too. I was afraid of that. I was afraid of losing people who I was about to tell. But, simply sure, I just didn't have any choice. I mean, I needed to move forward somehow. And, having the courage is probably one of the things that I'm most grateful for in my journey, my lifetime journey, that I had the courage that night to tell them what I needed to start. I mean, I was literally just like blabbering, but they understood what I was saying sufficiently to be really genuinely concerned. As I said, to demonstrate and show me unconditional love for probably the first time that I ever recognized it was happening. Yeah.
And like, I think the other thing that went through my mind were a couple things. Like, one is, like, not many men admit or want to admit that they were victims of abuse
Hmm.
or that they've experienced abuse. And so, for me, there was shame in that too. There was also shame in admitting that I tried to off myself, because there's a stigma around that. There's also a stigma about saying, "Hey, like, I I ended up at a hospital, but that's because I needed a higher level of care."
Hmm.
And I chose to get that higher level of care because I wanted to stay. So that, like, there is, like, and what I found is, yeah, like, there is some people that are gonna have, like, wince when you say that. Like, like, when I one example, like, if you read the back of my, I put my book up for sale at the coffee shop
Hmm.
where I wrote it. The back of my book, I make no secrets of what you're gonna read, what this book is about.
Yes.
I see a lot of people read it, put it down, and they're like, "Oh, that's too much," and that's okay for some people, but most of the time, there's gonna be people that want to hear you, that want to be there for you, and let them. It'll lead you to the resources that you may need, or
Yeah.
put language to what you're going through.
Yeah. We get to the people that we're meant to get to, for sure. So let's talk about that for just a minute, because so the woman who came into your life and started writing and passed, what was her name?
In the book, I named her Ava, but
Okay.
her name
Would
is
you like to?
Katie.
Katie. Okay. We
Yeah.
can, however you're comfortable with it. She's a real person. So I love Katie. So, by the way, I have pseudonyms in my book as well, except for people who only have one sister. So there's no point in giving her a pseudonym because it's hard to figure
Yeah.
out who she is, right? I did the same thing, though. We had some fun with doing that. But Katie, so I want to just express to you my sadness that I feel that she was only in your life for a short time. But wow, that might make me should cry. Hold my tears back there. But clearly, she was pivotal in your overall life's journey, right? Your healing journey, but also to the work that you'll do by sharing your story, right? Being here on this podcast right now with the people that will hear your story through this and all the other outlets, right? But I
Yeah.
am sorry that she was someone that you felt connected to and she saw you for who you truly are. And then to lose her. I don't understand why those kind of things happen to us, Chris. I don't. Why we lose people like that. I know why they come into our lives, what I call, in some cases, the awakeners or people who give us profound shifts in our life. Why we lose them, I don't.
I thought it was a cruel
That made me.
joke.
That made me go. I don't do this very often.
It sucks. Uh,
Yeah,
Not just for me. It sucks for the extremely loving family that she comes
yeah,
from.
yeah.
Like, I still talk to them.
Good.
Um, They are the, they are the sweetest people you'll ever meet. For a long time, I didn't know like how to grieve, or even if I was allowed to grieve, because she was in my life for such a short period of time. But when I say our life was full, I think we packed an entire lifetime of things in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish she didn't die.
Mm.
I wish that she could still, because she didn't do this just for me. She was like this with everyone around her. She was a very warm and giving person.
Mm.
Um, like she met a friend at karaoke whose cat died, and like within the 2 days of them meeting, she went and took them lasagna. Like that's the type of person that she was for everyone.
Just the heart she had. Yeah.
And so I wish A, that she was still here with us,
Mm-hmm.
but B, I wish there were more people with that level of selflessness in
Yes.
this world today.
Yes. Yes.
And as much as it sucks, I am grateful that she came into my life when she did.
Yeah. And she sounds like she is the embodiment of love, and what I know love to truly be: genuine love for humanity, for human beings, for people. And to be able to experience that yourself is amazing, because you know it's out there, right? You know there are people like that, and to experience that is a gift. So I'm
Yeah, and
happy.
I have
Yeah.
her picture right here
Yeah.
of one of the nights we met, or we met up to go to the beach, and I just keep it up here because you always need a woman looking over your shoulder.
A good woman looking over your
Yeah.
shoulder. Yes, we
Yes.
should clarify, because we should clarify that, right? You've
Yeah.
been on both sides of that. So, yeah, we should clarify that. Yeah.
But yeah, she was a gift, and I'm really thankful she breathed life back into me.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. It's a good legacy for her to pass on. So, yeah, it's wonderful. I'm glad you're connected to her family, though. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I got a message from her mom. Her mom is like always thinking. She's like, if you grieving Katie is hard for you, you can stop talking to us. I'm like, no, actually talking to you guys is so helpful. Like, and so like it or not, like you're stuck with me.
I bet they enjoy having you around. So, it's
I
wonderful
hope
that
so.
connection. Yeah, me too. You've got that
They
connection.
they
Yeah.
like Shadow more.
I don't know about that. Everybody loves dogs, and it sounds like Shadow's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, like I'll go there and like drop off like donuts or something because her dad
Mhm.
loves donuts, and I'll bring Shadow, and Shadow does the look around for Katie first, and then goes to see her dad.
Yeah, that's hard to experience that. I'm sure that moment when Shadow's looking is that reminder of, yeah, it's probably a little bit hard to experience. So let's talk a little bit about writing, right? Because you mentioned writing as catharsis, and that's where you began to share your life story with someone, and it became a catharsis to write down on paper what you'd experienced. I've had a similar experience, right? So mine started with journaling. So all through the hardest part, and I mean, I still journal and write today, because you're always healing. And we people tend to think I'm just gonna, go do the 1, 2, 3 or the 10 sessions with the therapist and I'm cured and I'm healed, right? And I think as most of us who've really had to go through some difficult times in our life, had a lot of pain, and then had to recover from that, we know that the healing journey is a lifelong. We're always going to be healing. And I know that. And a lot of that comes back to relationships, because we're still going to encounter people. And that could even be the relationship with ourselves, where things will happen in our experiences that will be hurtful, and we need to heal from those, right? The hope is that we have learned, me, you, people who've done some healing work can do it faster. We have our tools, and we can recover more quickly than maybe what we've carried with us in the past. But The journaling has been a big part of that for me, and then that led to writing my own book and sharing my story in a lot of other ways. And I think that is absent the work that I think we're called to do, you're called to do, I'm called to do, as a result of what we've been through, just from a healing perspective, the writing is hugely, it's really valuable. So if you want to talk some more about your experiences with that and what it's done for you, and you're still writing, so you're still getting something from it.
Yeah, I never thought I would be a writer.
Me either.
It's so pleasant. I knew I enjoyed writing. Did a lot of writing, like private writing
Mm-hmm.
for myself, but never, it was never in my, if you had told me last year that I would have been a published author, I would have just been like, you're funny. Like,
I had that thought at one point in time too.
and, and so when I started writing for Katie, it was a form of just release.
Yeah.
But it was also very difficult. It was, I couldn't do it at home. I ended up doing it at the local coffee shop down the street because it was the only way I could keep it together. And there were a lot of moments where I would like start writing, and I had to stop because then my mind would flash back to something, and next thing when I came to, like 2 hours had passed,
Yeah.
and it was like reliving painful memories, and I didn't, and so that's what the book ended up like after her passing. That's what the book ended up kind of evolving to. I wanted to find a way to gut punch the reader at
Mm.
every page,
Mm.
because that's what my life was like from 2020 to 2023. It
Yeah.
was it was experiencing having your breath taken away every day.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
in some sense, it was bringing breath back to me.
Yeah. 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 And the writing is a way to get that out, the emotion that goes along with it. It's interesting you call it the gut punch that you were experiencing in that time, and putting that down on paper so people can feel your emotion and know what you were experiencing directly.
And now, like it was also terrifying in a sense of, well, I'm going to be putting this out in the world,
Hmm.
and like, should I? Because like this is kind of like, again, going back to the stigma of things. And
That's the exact reason why you should put it out into the world. Your hope for men and people who are neurodiverse who've experienced similar things to what you've experienced, and take those completely separately. Take men and anything they've experienced, and people who are neurodiverse in any way, right, or have any kind of even a physical challenge, right? That's what you're doing, is you're giving them permission to also be seen. You're seeing them and you're being seen on their behalf and breaking down that stigma. And that's so important. So important.
I got to experience a lot of positive things
Yeah.
real quick, because not only did I became very intentional about what I wanted the narrative to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want I want other survivors to know that they're not alone, and to help carry them forward, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
try and just by sharing my experience, they can find some level of hope. And
Yes.
and I consistently get reminded of that.
Mm-hmm.
This past December, it was around Christmas time. I was preparing for a book event, and I was at the coffee shop where I wrote the book, and I was pre-signing a lot. It was a big event at the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
And these two kids, and they were in their 20s, first asked to pet Shadow. And then as it was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm like pre-signing these books." "Did you write this?" "Yeah." And so I started explaining, naturally they're like, well, what's it about? I was talking to them, and this lady who had bought my book a few weeks before at the book launch was there and walked up to us, and she was like, Chris, like, I don't know if you remember me, but I talked to you at the Pine Hills at your book launch, and I bought your book. And I was like, I don't remember people. So I was all like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Pine Hills, yeah, yeah, that was my, and she turned to the to the guy and his girlfriend, and she's like, this book helped me stay. And that was, I use this analogy all the time. It was a defibrillator to my soul, because it was at that moment, like, I'm getting to see what I set out to do in real time. And and I had made last week I had made an announcement that I was kind of taking some time away from writing. And in that silence, a lot of people stepped forward privately. They messaged me privately about the impact that my writing has had. And it's like, you're waiting, like my first initial reaction was, you're waiting till now to tell me, when
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
and like, you could have, but, it's like, I'm doing what my end goal has always been, was to reach. They may not feel comfortable reaching out, but it's helping people.
Yes.
I'm going to continue writing. It's just, I needed to take a step back, because I had a moment where a lot of life was happening at once. And,
As it does.
and, um, it came to a realization that, like, I was conflating writing with therapy, but some things can't be written away, like complex PTSD.
Yeah.
It's like the main elephant in the room that I've been avoiding through my writing, is addressing that complex PTSD.
Yes.
I got diagnosed with that when I was at the hospital. And so, I have to find ways to deal with that. And it only emphasizes that, like, healing isn't gonna, there's no timeline to it. I'm like, what, a little under 2 years of when shit hit stuff hit the fan. And, like, I'm still learning how to heal.
Of course.
And, it's just, you just have to be patient.
You
And,
do.
writing is going to still be a part of that healing process for me.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to have it be productive for those who are reading me as well.
Yes. Yeah. And properly placed in your own healing, right? And I think what you're saying there is sort of a, important point about what we've been talking about. There's no 1, 2, 3, do this and you're cured. There's a lot of moving parts that work together, but not becoming over reliant on any one aspect of your healing. So in this case, writing to substitute for potentially real help that you need from a trauma therapist, for example.
Right.
And not being afraid to say, I'm going to put the writing down for a little bit so I can go over here and work in other modalities of healing that I might need, right? Which I think is a really great thing for you to share. And it's very important. And it's just the reality of what we go through when we are taking this journey and trying to heal and move forward.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm still learning too is just being kind with myself and taking the time I need. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Because, you know, my mom, for instance, I think one time made the comment, like, I'm exhausted from all of this, right? And, like, she didn't mean it in a bad way, but, my response was like, if you're exhausted, imagine imagine
Oh,
me.
how you feel, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I am not the person I was 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm stronger because when the alarm bells, every time the red flags start coming up, like I'm very mindful about putting my money where my mouth is and, reaching out and asking for that help and
Yeah.
not being afraid to.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's critical. Yeah, it is. But you're a great example of why that's so important and how to do it. So I'm happy that you're sharing that with people and giving them the hope and the encouragement to do it. Their own
Sure.
courage to move forward.
Yeah, and the writing has helped a lot in terms of being able to like process and put things down on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is a great way to go through that. Me too. Same experience. So I do. We've been going for a little while here. We're going to come to an end in just a little bit. We're going to go as long as this needs to go. There is a question that I want to ask you because I'm curious about this, and then I just want to sort of come back to the place where you started, around the sense of worth. Right? And I want to just come back, and we're gonna end on the reality of what happens to us when people abuse us and traumatize us. Um, but the power that we can have to move past it. So, the question I have for you, you mentioned something happening in 2020. So 2020 to 2023 being really difficult years. So, what happened in 2020, and like what was the event, and about when did that happen?
Uh, it was my diagnosis, and it was around May.
May of 2020 rocked your world. Here's why I asked this question. There's like this very unscientific research that I'm seem to be undertaking now, and it really has to do with, I'm just noticing it's a pattern, a trend that I've noticed in people who are having radical and profound, transformative healing journeys. So I'm the first one who I know that experienced this, but I've been meeting people recently, maybe like in the last 2 or 3 months, where I'm really noticing this repeat pattern around that time period. And like what I'm seeing, we're in the middle of COVID at that point in time, right? And the world, COVID was like a profound energetic shift. Like our whole way of living changed, right? And it's sort of, and it sort of along kind of reverted back to how we were living before, although some things remain. But back then I was seeing it like, how 9/11 significantly shaped the way that we travel and move through airports and security and all of that. COVID was sort of similar in some of the changes and things that happened to get the world through it. It was a huge energetic shift, I think. But what I'm noticing is it seems like there are individuals, like at an individual level, there are maybe a lot of us who also experienced a profound shift internally. And for most of us, I think it was something really painful that caused us to flip over and head toward healing and be where we are now, how many ever years we are past that point, right? And I do, that we all had to live through a bit more pain, and maybe you were going through a significant pain period with some of the things that you experienced. But it's like this personal shift. So it seems to be like in this time period of like the spring to early spring to late summer of 2020, I keep meeting people. So my event was in June of 2020 was when I went to the hypnotherapy session, was June 19th of 2020. But it's like this, it's very interesting phenomenon that I'm starting to see of people who have experienced this. And so maybe you are one of those people as well with what you're describing about when all of that really shifted for you. It's an interesting thing that
Yeah.
I'm observing. Very unscientific research, but it's happening more and more that I hear people saying this.
Interesting data points.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting data point. Yeah. So I wanted to come back to, when you were talking earlier about sort of questioning your own worth because of what other people were doing to you and saying to you. And, you mentioned carrying shame for some of the things that you've been through. And this is what I think is one of the most terrible things that happens to us when we're a survivor, and I've had the same sort of shame and guilt feelings that I have carried. And mine wasn't a sense of worth, but mine was more about questions about whether I was somebody who was lovable. Did I deserve love? Could I be loved? Could I love others? Right? That was my question about my being that I had for a long time. And that came from me just experiencing abandonment a lot in various forms. And the only commonality in being abandoned over and over again was me. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not lovable. Right. That's where mine came to. And what I know now, and what I think is really the cruel reality of being survivors, is that our brains get wired with that stuff. I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable. I'm carrying guilt. I'm carrying shame. Our brains get wired with that stuff because of what other people have done to us. And that is the cruel reality of it, right? Somebody hurts us, somebody abuses us, somebody traumatizes us, but we internalize it and carry it, right? It becomes something that is like our cross to bear until we take it off and don't carry it anymore. And it's just it's a terrible reality. But I think for me, when I realized that I was carrying all of this really heavy stuff and living in ways that was very unhealthy and not true to me, when I realized it was all because of what other people had done to me, that's really what made it click for me that, oh, well, if they put it on me and I'm wearing it because of them, I can take it off, meaning I can heal. I can move past this. But I think, we all experience that, and you've described it well, where you were and how you felt. But what I know to be true is it's not ours. It comes from somebody else mistreating us, taking advantage of us, and we can shed it, which is the silver lining there.
And that's one of the things that really was really strong with me and Katie, was because I wasn't healed yet. I still felt unlovable. And I literally consistently was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I questioned everything. Is she love bombing me? Is she is she going to when's the abuse gonna start? And so, and because I still felt worthless, I did everything. I did a lot of things to try and sabotage it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that does happen. Yeah. Which is cruel reality of what we experience. Yeah.
And, no matter what I threw at her, she would come over and say, let's go to karaoke and let's go here. And so it still, it helped her loving me for but it's something I'm still trying to let go of, was that
Yeah.
lie of worthlessness.
Yeah, and not
Yeah.
letting, because when we do that, when we live in that place, we're allowing the people who mistreated us and hurt us to still control our lives. And
Yeah.
that's the part that we need to break. Right. And that's really, healing. That's a lot of the healing work that we go through, is rewiring or rewiring and unwiring, but releasing that control that perpetrators still have over us. And it's just, everything we're talking about is terrible, except for the healing part. That's happy. That's good, right? We can come to a good place on that. But the reasons why we need to heal, all of that is just terrible. And then you just layer on top of that we really sort of fuel that and perpetuate the pain that we live with, because we're in a place where people who've hurt us are still controlling, right? They're still in charge of what happens in our life. And the healing journey is really about releasing that. And, when I talk about love, that sort of being the destination for me, love is, first of all, the recognition that the supreme source of love is our higher power, God, universe, however you know that entity, that being. And then the first place that we really need to have love and understand love is with ourselves. And because underneath all the layers of the pain and the suffering and maybe some awful things that we've done to survive in our life is really the amazing person who we were born to be. And we just need to get back to that person, which is what we do when we heal.
Yeah. And sometimes, like me, it's identifying what's really blocking from that happening.
Yes. And, we have lots of multiple blocks. You mentioned C-PTSD before, and one of the books that's had the most profound effect on me and helping me to move forward in my healing journey, the first book I actually read on this journey was Pete Walker's book, Complex PTSD, Surviving to Thriving, which was like a roadmap for me to see myself and recognize myself as a survivor. Ergo, I must need to heal from something that I've survived because I'm a survivor, because I could see the way behaviors my own behaviors and other people's around me, but, um, we think about CPTSD, we're, I think, wired to think about it in terms of like, you've been at war, or you've been in some sort of human atrocity in war, or you've experienced some sort of a terrorist event or something like that. That's when you have complex PTSD. And I don't think that's true. I think it's more about the layering of the things that we experience. And you can even experience a significant amount of little t trauma over and over and over and over and over again, which is the psychological abuse you were experiencing on a daily basis, right? And I've had similar experience with emotional abuse and abandonment, right? And it just layers and layers and layers until we're buried under it. And then you have to come out from underneath all of that. And so, I don't think many people who end up in a place where they would identify as a survivor and I need to heal would tell you I've only been through one event in my life that I need to recover from. That's just not the reality of the human experience.
Yeah. For me, that was the biggest one.
Yeah,
But
and I don't. I mean, people say, when, CPTSD is quote unquote a diagnosis. I'm like, I mean, I get why that's being said, but I mean, when you think about it in the context of sort of, layering and the things that we go through on a regular basis that are painful and hurtful, it's really just a way to say, I've been through a lot of really difficult stuff in my life, right? And some of it, the way that I've internalized it, it's been really, really hard for me. And I've survived my life in ways that weren't great because of what I've experienced, right? It's that layering. So it is a diagnosis, which is that labeling, that stigma. But the reality of it is the truth for me, the truth for Chris is that you've just been through a lot of really difficult and painful things in your life that were all compounded and layering on top of each other, right? So it's a
yeah.
fact, it's a truth, not a diagnosis, not a label, not something to be stigmatized, right? It's just a truth, a fact of your life, a fact of my life.
And then I often wonder, like, oh, what a blessing. What did I do to have all these things just happen? Right. I like, I didn't ask for the diagnosis. I didn't even want the diagnosis. I didn't want, I didn't want to experience abuse. I didn't want Katie to die. I didn't, uh, you know, through that too, like through USH shuttering, I also lost my job. And so, yeah, it was like a lot of things.
A lot, yes. Also, a traumatic event, losing your job, and
Yeah.
you mentioned divorce. You've been through a divorce, also a traumatic event.
Yeah.
I will offer this to you, what I believe, and I think you're like me. The reason that we experience what we experience is because there is a greater purpose for our story and what we've been through. And it's exactly what we're doing now, right? Me writing my book and sharing my story and having this podcast and trying to get my message out more and more about healing, you doing the exact same thing, sharing your story, writing your book, however you will go on to continue to do that. It's really about the greater good and the people that you can touch, the lives you can save, how you can help people. You've already done that. You had somebody who said to you, your book helped me so much, right? And there are a lot of people out there. I experienced the same thing, that I just run into somebody and they'll say it to me, right? Or I don't know, and you're like, well, why hadn't you already told me that, right? I mean, I experienced the same thing, and that's the greater good. That's the purpose of why we experience this. And I know for myself that that's actually why I exist on this earth. And I, describe my life as, one of the great ironies of my life is that I had to suffer for 45 years so that I could go on my healing journey, so I could now do the work that I do as the healing mentor. And that's, I think, why many of us experience what we experience, right? And we have the opportunity to heal, to find joy, and to thrive in our life. But also, we're meant to pass that on, which you're doing. So I would just offer,
And that's where I've been finding a lot of joy, is just helping others.
yes, yes.
It's been kind of like a unique life of service.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think is probably what you're intended to be doing. So just living in your life's path, it just unfortunately had some pretty ugly and awful stuff attached to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry for that. And I have of empathy and compassion for you, being one of those people myself. And I'm, as I've said already, I'm going to say again, I'm grateful that you're still here in the world with us, Chris.
Oh, thanks. Me too.
Yeah. All right. So once again, this is your book, Now That I'm Still Here. And Chris Carazas, where can people find your book?
Oh, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, wherever books are sold,
Okay.
and
All right.
worldwide too. Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. We will put some of those links into the show notes so people can find it directly after they listen to you and are inspired to read your book.
Thanks. And, just taking a little hiatus from the Substack, but I should be back in like a week or two.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we will put that out there as well. By the time this airs, you'll be back. So we'll make sure that that's in as well so people can find that. So it's been a delight having you here. I've enjoyed all the conversations that we've had. I hope we'll stay connected.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
All right. As I always say to you, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this episode. And please keep healing. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Beth Jones Healing Mentor. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work to help other survivors to heal, please visit me on the web at empoweredsurvivors.com.